This is the Apple Watch Series 9, and while I originally thought this might be a significant upgrade from its predecessors, after wearing it for 5 months, I don't know that I share the same feelings anymore. The Series 9 was announced with a host of new features, some of which have been useful, but for the most part, a lot of them have been fluff in my opinion. And today I want to get into what in here has value, what doesn't, and just what things look like from about a half a year of usage. So if you're considering upgrading from a previous Apple Watch, or you're looking to make the switch from something else and immersing yourself in the Apple ecosystem a bit more, hopefully this can help you out. So with that said, let's get into it. Hey everyone, Kyle Erickson here. The Apple Watch Series 9 was announced alongside all the new iPhones this year at the September Apple event. And this year had what seemed like a substantial amount of upgrades compared to the last couple of releases. There's an all-new S9 chip, or SIP as Apple calls it, that's much more powerful, a new neural engine which enables a whole bunch of stuff on the watch, like new advanced Siri modes and the new double tap feature. There's display improvements, a new ultra-wideband chip, amongst other things. And to top that all off, it runs on watchOS 10, which was completely redesigned this year. On paper, that sounds pretty impressive and a big step forward compared to previous years where there's mostly been the same hardware, just with a feature or two added, like crash detection or body temperature sensors, which in most cases were never enough to justify upgrading. That's why I stayed with the Series 6, basically until my battery health was so bad that it forced me to upgrade, and the Series 9 felt like it had a lot going for it. So I decided to pick one up, not only to replace that Series 6, but also to report back on the channel with how valuable this new stuff actually is in the real world. The model that I have here is the 45mm aluminum Starlight version with a Sequoia orange Nike Sport Loop. I went with this color scheme because it matches my iPhone 15 Pro in natural titanium almost perfectly, and my last watch was black, so I just wanted to switch things up a little. It's held up exceptionally well, and it doesn't have any marks or scratches on the aluminum housing or the screen, which is somewhat surprising considering that I've had it in some pretty high contact areas, fixing stuff or building PCs, and occasionally just hitting it off of stuff around the house. The watch strap, on the other hand, is starting to wear quite a bit where the Velcro attaches. I was concerned with this when I bought it because Velcro can tend to wear pretty easily if it's always being attached and detached. And because you've got to take this off pretty much every day, you're doing that a lot. And you can see the fabric here is starting to pill and wear a little. So I've actually just gone ahead and ordered the Alpine strap to replace it. That strap is about double the cost of the Nike Sport Loop, but if you don't want to spend $100 on a band and you want something that's going to last a long time, I'd probably stay away from these sport loops altogether and go with a sport band or a solo loop. Those are at the same $50 price point and are quite durable, and the solo loop in particular is super light and comfortable. Just be aware that it's fitted to your wrist, so you might want to get that sized up at an Apple store if you decide to go with that one. A big reason why I went with a 45mm version this year is I wanted a slightly bigger screen coming from a 40mm, but I didn't want to go all the way up to an Ultra because I do have smaller wrists and it just kind of looks ridiculous on me, so this is a happy medium. I definitely appreciate the extra 5mm of screen real estate. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's really recognizable, and it does give you some added benefits like having an actual keyboard for replying to messages, which I use regularly. And the display in particular is something that I probably noticed the most out of any new features on the Series 9. The screen on here goes all the way up to 2000 nits peak brightness, which is double that of the last 3 generations. I find it a lot more usable in bright areas, and I'm generally very happy with the vibrance and the sharpness, especially with all the new UI elements in watchOS 10. Now, watchOS 10 is available for anything Series 4 and later, so if you do have an older Apple Watch made within the last 5 years or so, you're probably familiar with it if you keep your software up to date. Even with a lot of what's offered there being available outside of the Series 9, I still wanted to touch on my experience with it, especially for folks who might be looking to get into their first Apple Watch, but I'll try and keep that brief. You get new watch faces, one of which I've been using on mine since I got it, which is called Nike Globe. I just really like the way that it looks and how it splits the complications out into each corner. I've played around and customized those over the last few months to find what suits me best, but for now I've got the weather, battery life, date, and fitness information displayed, And then for the things that I access less, I have those pinned in the new Smart Stack. This view is brand new and is essentially a stack of widgets that you can move around that provide you with more visual information at a glance, similar to how complications work. I occasionally pop in here to look at sleep tracking or the world clock, but by no means is this something that I use every day. I just find that the information in the Smart Stack often doesn't update until you click on it. So functionally, it just feels more like an app shortcut launcher. And because that's shown when you swipe up and all the buttons and actions kind of got revamped in watchOS 10, I still struggle with the muscle memory built up from the past versions. I used to click the side button to access the app switcher and go to my most used apps like Fitness. That moved to double clicking on the crown. I'm slowly getting used to that. And speaking of Fitness, that app, along with most other native app screens, have been redesigned to include a lot more information, and I just find are more visually appealing. You can see your workout details now in the Fitness app with more stats and tracking. And I just find that I look in the Fitness app on my phone a lot less and stick more to the watch now. Like I said, anything UI related like that, you're gonna find across any watch running watchOS 10, but I have noticed some differences in the actual tracking of fitness data compared to my old Apple Watch. I'm assuming this is probably because of a combination of having the ultra-wideband chip that has more precise location tracking and the neural engine, but it does seem to track distances a little more accurately when I'm outside running, and even on a treadmill, while it's still not super accurate, it somewhat resembles what's shown on the treadmill readout at least, where the Series 6 wasn't even close. That ultra-wideband chip also enables things like precision finding that'll give you the precise location of your phone, provided it also has an ultra-wideband chip. So basically anything iPhone 15 and above. Realistically, I don't know that I've used that outside of testing, but I could see that coming in handy for certain situations, and that goes for the new double tap feature as well. So double tap is only available on the Series 9 and Ultra 2 watches, where you can raise your arm up and pinch your fingers twice to do different things on your watch, like scroll through your Smart Stack, answer calls, amongst other things, but I really don't find it all that useful. This might be because, again, I've got so much muscle memory built up from years of using the Apple Watch before this even became a thing, but there's rarely ever a time where that gesture is easier than using your other hand. On top of that, I find that it can sometimes get confusing trying to use this if you're scrolling through your Smart Stack and you've got music playing. You can end up pausing or playing tracks with the same gesture, and outside of very specific instances, I don't think that there's a whole lot of value there. Maybe if we could customize that a bit more for things like launching Apple Pay, I think that would be so much more useful, because that's one scenario where most people at times are only going to have one hand free. We'll see if that changes at all, but I'm not holding my breath. That new neural engine also enables a bunch of new things in Siri this year. Essentially, Siri is supposed to be much smarter at providing you with more relevant on-device data when it comes to things like health. And just generally be faster because it's doing things on device via that neural engine, rather than having to hit the cloud anytime you ask it anything. I do find it somewhat faster to respond, but it's not something that you really notice in day-to-day use, at least I don't. But I don't use Siri that often, and again, if I'm looking at health metrics, it's far more likely that I'm just going to look at them in my watch versus randomly ask Siri about them. The other metric worth mentioning is blood oxygen tracking, which this model does have, but I wanted to bring this up because any new Series 9 that's sold just in the US alone through Apple won't have that feature due to a patent dispute. But again, that feature in itself isn't all that useful because it's not super accurate to begin with. Finally, last but not least, the battery life. This is another area that hasn't really changed all that much. Apple says that you can get 18 hours of battery life like they do every year, but this is one device where they're really conservative in their estimates. In the real world, I can get around 36 hours of battery life, give or take. That includes about an hour of fitness tracking with regular usage. So that does mean that I usually charge this every day, but the nice thing is, because this does extend out past a day's worth of battery life, if I put this on the charger when I shower, I'm not putting it on when it's at 0%. So It doesn't take long to charge, and it's fully charged when I'm done, so it's never really an inconvenience. The battery capacity is still at 100% as well, which I'd expect on a device this new, and all in all, it's been a very solid, reliable smartwatch. The upgrades included this year, I'd say, are more than what we've seen in years past. Some are definitely nice to have, like the increased screen brightness and some of the ultra-wideband features, but for me, the rest are mostly just window dressing. If you're using Siri a lot or you're really into that double tap feature, maybe it's enough for you to consider upgrading, which I would love to know. If you have a Series 9 or an Ultra 2 watch, do you ever use double tap or any of the features that I mentioned here that I said that I don't use too often? Let me know in the comments down below, because it's always interesting to hear if people are using things in different ways or for different purposes. Likewise, if you have any questions about the Series 9, drop those below as well, but that's all I have for you today. I know that I've been doing a lot of these long-term reviews lately, but I just think that there's a lot of value in revisiting this stuff after it's been used for a long time and the hype and the novelty has worn off a bit. But I will be getting back into some other comparison videos and some new Apple stuff when it comes out, hopefully next month, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, feel free to hit that like button. If you want to see more tech-related content or host online meditation sessions with me led by a holographic guru from the future, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next upload.